In the quiet hours of a forgotten century, when kingdoms rose and crumbled like sand under the soft pressure of time, there existed a small secluded realm known as Aldershire, a land surrounded by endless pine forests, slow-rolling mountains, and a sky so wide that it seemed to hold every secret the world had ever whispered. And among those secrets was one event so strange, so unsettling that the people of Aldershire would speak of it only in hushed tones, even generations later, calling it simply the night of the falling darkness, a night when, according to their trembling testimonies, the sky rained black feathers. The story begins in late autumn at the very edge of dusk, when the sun had already dipped behind the horizon and the last traces of orange clung desperately to the clouds, fading slowly into a deepening blue, and the villagers, farmers, shepherds, and simple townsfolk prepared for another long cold night. In those days, Aldershire was a place deeply connected to omens and symbols. Every unusual cry of an owl, every strange shape in the fog, every oddly colored sunrise meant something, a warning, a blessing, or a whisper from an unseen world. But even in this land of superstition, nothing had ever prepared them for what would come. Many later stated that the air felt strange, the evening thicker somehow, as though the world was holding its breath, and the animals certainly sensed it first. Horses refused to enter their stables, sheep huddled together and stared toward the sky with wide, white eyes, and dogs whimpered and wouldn't be coaxed from beneath carts and tables. As the first stars began to appear, a cold wind swept across the kingdom, or wind unlike the usual crisp mountain breeze, but one carrying the faint scent of something burnt, something metallic, something that didn't belong. People stepped outside their homes, clutching cloaks around their shoulders, and looked upward, trying to find the source of this strange smell. Then, one by one, they noticed the clouds, huge, heavy masses of darkness pulling overhead, moving in unnatural spirals, gathering above the village square as though drawn by some invisible force. A murmuring spread through the crowd, fear mixed with curiosity as the sky grew darker, much darker than normal nightfall, until the stars themselves seemed to vanish behind a curtain of black. Some villagers whispered prayers, others backed away, and a few insisted they heard low, distant rumbling, not thunder, but something slower, deeper, like the grinding of stone far beneath the earth. And then, without warning, something began to fall from the sky, soft at first, so soft that the earliest witnesses thought it was simply early snow, small fluttering shapes drifting down in the dim light. But as the first pieces landed on outstretched hands and hair and cloaks, the villagers realized these were not snowflakes. They were feathers, black feathers, cold to the touch, unnaturally smooth, and so dark they seemed to absorb the light around them. Gasps filled the square as more and more of them fell, soon covering the rooftops, the cobblestones, the fields beyond. Children screamed, elders collapsed in fear, and priests began shouting rituals meant to ward off curses. Why would feathers fall from the sky? Where could they come from? No storm carried birds. No season brought such flocks. No natural event explained it. And yet the feathers kept falling. Thousands, tens of thousands, drifting silently, hauntingly, covering the world in a soft, black blanket that seemed to muffle even the sound of the wind. Some villagers claimed they felt the feathers pulse faintly in their hands, as though still alive. Others swore they smelled faint traces of sulfur or heard faint whispers carried on the air. And still they fell. The local chronicler Aldwyn of Eldershire wrote in his journal that the sky wept darkness, and the darkness fell upon us like a warning, and he described how the villagers gathered in the square watching and paralyzed, or as the feathers piled higher forming dunes against doorways and windows. Hours passed, though no one was certain how many, because time itself seemed distorted, stretched thin by fear. Some said the moon briefly appeared in the sky, but was shrouded almost instantly by the falling blackness. Others said the entire world went silent, that not even insects dared to make a sound. Finally, just before dawn, the falling stopped. The clouds dispersed, the scent vanished, and the sky, clear and pale with morning light, revealed nothing unusual except for the carpet of feathers covering the entire kingdom. As sunlight touched them, they shimmered slightly, reflecting a faint iridescence like oil on water. And then, before anyone could gather a single feather for study or ceremony, something else began to happen. The feathers faded, not decayed, not burned away, but simply faded, losing shape and substance until they dissolved into a fine, black dust that scattered with the first breeze. By midday, every trace of the night's event had vanished, but the memory remained. And with that memory came fear. The king of Eldershire, a ruler known for equal parts wisdom and superstition, summoned priests, scholars, astronomers, and even travelers from distant regions to explain the occurrence. Some believed it was an omen, a warning that the kingdom was in danger. Others believed it was punishment for unknown sins. A few said it was a natural event, perhaps a great flock of crows or ravens struck down by disease or fire. But no birds were found anywhere in the land. No ashes. No remains. Nothing at all. The people grew restless, whispering that the feathers were a sign of approaching plague, or war, or famine. And curiously, several months after the event, a long, bitter winter struck Aldershire, harsher than any the villagers had seen before. Crops froze, rivers iced over, and sickness spread rapidly through the population. Some saw this as proof of the omen. Others insisted it was mere coincidence. As years passed, the story became a legend, then a myth, and eventually a tale told to children before sleep softened, shortened, and mixed with imagination. Yet Aldwyn's journal survived, preserved in a monastery centuries later. its fragile pages recounting every detail with unnerving clarity. Modern historians, reading his words today, have proposed various explanations for the so-called Black Feather Rain. Some believe it could have been volcanic ash carried unusually by wind patterns, though the texture described does not match. Others theorize a rare meteorological event involving soot or burned plant matter lifted into the atmosphere, though again, the feather-like structure remains unexplained. A more mystical interpretation suggests a mass migration of birds struck by a sudden, poisonous gas release from deep underground, though the lack of physical remains contradicts this. And so the mystery persists. A small kingdom claimed the sky rained black feathers. Their written records insist it happened. Their centuries-long fear suggests it left a mark too deep to be imagined. And even now, as we sit in the comfort of the modern world listening to the soft retelling of old fears, the idea itself carries a strange, lingering chill. What would you feel after all if you stepped outside one night and saw the sky darken not with storm clouds, but with falling feathers? Would you look for explanations in science or superstition, or perhaps something older and not meant to be understood? As you drift into the calm embrace of sleep, imagine the ancient kingdom wrapped in silence. Beneath the falling blackness, the people gathered in their square, gazing upward with wide eyes, wondering whether the sky was warning them, or simply revealing a truth they were never meant to see. And imagine, just for a moment, the soft sound of countless feathers landing gently on stone, strange, delicate, impossibly silent before the world returns to stillness once more.